Good day, my beautiful people. More of this medieval stuff coming up, and there's nothing you can do about it. Alright, this time let's go over Tamar the Great. How did she get that great into her name? Well, let me explain. Tamar was born somewhere around 1160 to George III and his consort Borduhan. Tamar's daddy, George III, saw some internal troubles in Georgia. Pretender rebels. Treacherous nobles had risen up to dethrone him. Fighting was rather fierce at times, but the civil war, it was won by George III. And once the whole rebel threat was eliminated, George went to co-opt his most loved girl, Tamar, into the government. He crowned her as a co-ruler in 1178. Mostly so that he could keep his line more stable and legitimate, so that such pretender nonsense would not happen again. Well, for 6 years, Tamar worked as a co-ruler. That's until her daddy went and died in 1184, after which Tamar continued as the sole monarch and got crowned again. This was the second time already. She inherited quite a strong kingdom, though it still had some issues with the nobles. Thanks, feudalism. You are such a functional system. Those goddamn noble men had some issues with Tamar. Her freaking gender. Oh god damn it, that's not cool! So Tamar had to face a load of BS just to legitimize herself as a ruler. Because she was a girl. Well, Tamar's influential aunt Rushudan and the Georgian Catholicos Patriarch Michael IV, Miriandij, though helped her out. What a nice bunch of fellas. Then Tamar needed to get married, so that someone would control the armies and that the nobles would be more pleased. 'Cause they were so goddamn sexist! The prince came from the northern Caucasus. A refugee among the Kipchaks, he was. The name was Yuri. Yuri was a young man. A boy with a valiant and a perfect body. Apparently something rather pleasing to behold. Yuri proved to be an able soldier, but also a very, very difficult person, as he was at constant disagreements with his wife. Well, this course was a bit of a factional struggle at the court. Well, Yuri proved to be so difficult that Tamar just had to go and have a divorce. He was sent off to Constantinople, though he was still very displeased and angry after this and attempted a grand total of 2 coup attempts to get Tamar off her throne. Well, then in came the second husband. David Shoshlan was his name. An Alan. He proved to be a very able commander and cleanly wiped out the shite Yuri had attempted to do with his armies. Well, Tamar and David, they came together rather well. They had 2 children, in 1192 and 1194. The future King George IV and daughter Rushudan, who would become a sovereign of Georgia after his brother. Georgia had kept it quite quiet with a military expansion after the times of David the Builder. The reason? Them nobles can't focus outside when you got problems inside. Early in the 1190s, the Georgian government had begun to interfere in the affairs of the neighboring Muslim nations of Iljanidij and Shirvanshah. The government aided rival factions in these nations and successfully pulled these nations under Georgian influence. Shirvan, for example, got reduced to just a Georgian tributary. One question, though, remained as a prime importance for the Georgians. The question of the liberation of Armenia from the Muslim rule. It was still an issue after like 100 years after the times of David the Builder. So in 1199, Tamar's armies, led by two Christianized Kurds, Chakare and Ivan Makhacheli, dislodged the Shapadids from Lani. At the beginning of the 13th century, Georgian armies overran fortresses and cities towards the Arat plain, reclaiming one after another fortresses and districts from the Muslims. The Muslims, they got worried. So worried by the Georgian success that Suleiman Shah II, the Sultan of Rum, rallied his vassals and marched against Georgia. But the Sultan's camp got just like instantly destroyed, and Georgians with the lead of David Shosholan just marched onwards, beat the Turks at the Battle of Bashian in 1203, and just freaking took like 4 Rum vassals to themselves. In 1206, the Georgian army, still under David Shosholan, faced yet another dread, as the folks at Eregium just did not want to submit to Georgia. Well, they were eventually forced to just give up. But then, into the mess came the Ayyubids in 1207. But in 1209, Georgia was more than ready to challenge their rule over Armenia. A liberation war for southern Armenia was declared, and into the enemy lands charged the Georgians. The Georgians, they went and laid siege to Arat, but in response to this, the Ayyubid Sultan Al-Adil assembled and personally led a large Muslim army, consisting of men from, honestly, way too many emirates, for a reason though. 'Cause the Georgians, damn, they were scary. But during the siege, Georgian general Ivan... Oh, goddamn with these names! Muharujeli just accidentally happened to fall into the hands of the Ahad on the outskirts of Arat. A 30-year truce was signed in exchange of this general. This effectively led the Georgian struggle for Armenian liberation to a stall. The Lake Van region was left to the Ayyubids. Oh, so sad. Almost got those poor Armenians out of Muslim hands. It was so freaking close, but yet so far. The Empire of Trebizond, the Eastern Roman Empire. It did not have too much of a great reputation. Pretty much everyone ever hated them. Even they themselves hated themselves, as they were at constant civil wars. Well, this caused was eventually the whole Fourth Crusade fiasco, in which the Crusaders just downright pillaged Constantinople and split the whole empire between each other. The Georgians as well. They downright despised Byzantium. They had some succession and royal marriage issues, but the whole thing quickly escalated when Tamar donated large sums of money to Georgian monasteries in Antioch and Mount Athos. And the Byzantine emperor just stole all of that money to himself. And Tamar got really pissed. Like, outraged. On a really large scale. Tamar, she went and declared war. Georgian army under the command of Alexius and David Komnenos attacked the Byzantines from the east. The expedition took 8 days, during which the Georgians sieged Trebizond via Lagia. At the same time, Constantinople fell to the Crusaders. The Georgians and the Crusaders working together again, I see. This time for completely different reasons. But this series of events in which the Crusaders got kicked out of the Holy Land, and Byzantium was no longer here to take care of the Christian communities in the Middle East, gave Tamar a chance to get to the international stage. Tamar saw the position as the crown protector of the Middle Eastern Christians, and that's what she did. Georgian missionaries were active in North Caucasus, and the expatriate monastic communities, which were scattered throughout the eastern Mediterranean, now got themselves some Georgian influence. Tamar's chronicles praise her universal protection of Christianity and her support of churches and monasteries from Egypt to Bulgaria to Cyprus. But the Georgian court's primary concern was the protection of Georgian monastic centers in the Holy Land. By the 12th century, 8 Georgian monasteries were listed in Jerusalem. After the Ayyubid conquest of Jerusalem with the lead of Shalahaddin, Tamar sent him some envoys to request confiscated possessions of Georgian monasteries in Jerusalem to be returned. Seemingly the request went through successfully. Naturally. We all know Shalahaddin. He is a very understanding fella. Always gets along well with everyone, even with his enemies. But we also got some nice cultural stuff out of Tamar's reign. My favorite stuff. With all of this golden age prosperity came an outburst of distinct Georgian culture. A mixture of the amalgam of Christianity, almost humanist secularism, as well as both Western and Eastern influences. Though the Georgians, they did stick pretty close with the Byzantine cultural influences. The period saw, to be honest here, way too many churches being built. But by God, were they all freaking beautiful as